week 2 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few pitchers I would look to add on the waiver wire this week. The first guy's Jake Arrieta of the Chicago Cubs. So Arrieta so far off to a good start, where he had his best career years as a Chicago Cub earlier in his career, where he won a Cy Young Award. So far in the season, 12 innings pitched for Arrieta. He's 2-0, only 3 earned runs, 9 strikeouts, a 2.25 ERA, and a 1.42 whip and 2 quality starts. So Arrieta right now, I know he's versus the Pittsburgh Pirates in the first 2 games he started this season. But hey, you got to just pitch who you're versing on the schedule, and hopefully you do good. And so far, Arrieta, he's done a good job versus Pittsburgh in the first 2 starts. April 3rd versus Pittsburgh, 6 innings. He got the win in that ball game. 6 hits, 1 run. He gave up only a walk, 5 strikeouts. And then in the second outing versus Pittsburgh on April 8th, 6 innings again, a win, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, and the quality start. So Arrieta, he's been keeping the ball down. He's been pitching good. And the walks, he's got 4 walks in 2 starts. Not so bad for Arrieta. And he's given up 6 or 7 hits. But now he's got a tougher matchup coming up in a couple days at the Milwaukee Brewers. But right now, Arrieta, he's pitching well. He's on a decent Cub team that could still score his team some runs and win some ball games, and he's available in 52% of fantasy leagues. So I think there's worse guys on some fantasy rosters where I'd rather have Arrieta in the situation, and he's the first pitcher I would look to add. The second guy is Steven Matz of the Toronto Blue Jays. So Steven Matz, he was a top prospect years ago in the New York Mets farm system, but he just never put it together really for the Mets. We've only seen a few spans of good outings from him, but now he changed his scenery. He got traded to the Toronto Blue Jays in the offseason, and so far this year, 12 in a third inning for Matz. He's 2-0, only giving up 7 hits in 2 starts, 13 strikeouts with a 1.46 ERA and an 0.89 whip and 2 quality starts. So Steven Matz, maybe he just had to get out of his hometown in New York, and he wasn't getting the job done with the Mets. I think it was time for the Mets and Matz to move on, and that's what exactly happened in the offseason here. So in his first 2 starts of the season, April 5th at Texas, 6 1/3, he got a win in that ball game, only 2 hits, 1 run and 9 strikeouts. And then April 10th versus the Angels, 6 innings again, he got the win in that game, 5 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, and a quality start. So Steven Matz, he's putting it together so far this season. And then April 15th, he's got another good matchup at the Kansas City Royals this week, where I could see Matz having a good game. Because if Steven Matz changed things up, this guy, we knew he had potential. Now he's just got to put it all together. And so far in the 2 first starts of the season, he's definitely done that and put up some big fantasy numbers. And he's available also, Matz, in 45% of fantasy leagues. So if he's out there, he's definitely worth a shot in 10-team leagues or deeper, in my opinion. The next pitcher is Carlos Rendon of the Chicago White Sox. So Rendon, like Steven Matz, he was another big-time prospect seasons ago as the lefty Rendon. And right now, he's on a good Chicago White Sox team that's obviously favored to win the AL Central this season. And Rendon, so far, he only started 1 ball game versus a mediocre Seattle Mariner offense. And he pitched well, 5 innings. He got the win in that game. Only 2 hits, 9 strikeouts in that game. And now his next start is today for Rendon versus the Cleveland Indians. And we'll see what he can do versus Cleveland. Rebuilding a little. They traded the best hitter in Lindor in the offseason. And Rendon, he's on a pretty decent team like I mentioned. So I think today versus Cleveland, if he has another big game, he's a guy that should be owned in more fantasy leagues than he is. He's still available in 47% of fantasy leagues. And he's not a bad player to have in your rotation, is Rendon, after he struggled the last couple seasons. I think this season he got a full off season under his belt. He's 100%, and he's going to pitch well. The next pitcher is Yimi Garcia of the Miami Marlins. So we saw Garcia get a save versus the New York Mets on Saturday after Anthony Bass blew a ball game on Thursday versus the Mets, where the Marlins lost the game they should have won. So Garcia, he's available in 75% of fantasy leagues. And he's been pitching well so far in the season. Garcia on the season, he's pitched 5 innings. He's 0-1 record with a 1.80 ERA and an 0.80 WHIP, and he's got one save is Garcia. So Garcia, he definitely could be the closer for this Marlins team, and he put the Mets down easily the other day in that ball game where the Marlins won 3-0. So his last 3 outings for Garcia, April 6th versus St. Louis, he went 1 inning, 1 hit, no ERA. Then April 8th at the Mets, 1 inning and a strikeout, 1-2-3 inning. And then April 10th versus the Mets, a 1-2-3 inning and got the save in that one. So yesterday's game was rained out for the Mets. And we'll see tonight if Miami gets in a situation versus the Atlanta Braves where they're up in the 9th inning. And we'll see if they go with Bass as Mattingly or Yimi Garcia. But right now, I think he's definitely worth an ad after Bass blowing that game and then going to Garcia. But right now, I wouldn't rush out there right away to get him. But in 14-team leagues or deeper, definitely go out there and get Yimi Garcia. Because if he's the closer, he's a guy to get now. And obviously, you don't got to waste much of a waiver or make a trade for a closer. The next pitcher is Trevor Rogers of the Miami Marlins. So Rogers, he looks solid versus this Met team in a pitching duel versus Jacob deGrom the other day. And Rogers, 10 strikeouts in that ball game. And he's been pretty solid this season so far as Rogers in his 2 starts. The first start, it didn't go as planned, but he still had a good strikeout rate. And he still got some big outs in the game. So on the season for Rogers, so far 10 innings, a 1-1 record for him, 16 strikeouts, 0 ERA, and a 1.10 WHIP for Rogers. So his first start, April 5th, versus the St. Louis Cardinals. He went 4 innings. He lost in that ball game, but only gave up 2 hits and 2 earned runs. And then April 10th at the Mets, like I said, in that pitching duel versus Jacob deGrom, 6 innings. He got the win in that ball game. Only 3 hits, 10 strikeouts, and the quality starts. So Trevor Rogers, he's a good lefty, and he's a guy that's up and coming for this Miami Marlins team. Not many people heard about him, but after out-pitching Jacob deGrom in that pitching duel the other night, he's a guy that definitely is on the fantasy radar and a guy the Marlins definitely believe in, and he's available in 45% of fantasy leagues. So if Rogers is out there, I would definitely take a shot and get him because his strikeout rate right now is ridiculous, and he's a good throwing lefty. The next pitcher is Ian Kennedy of the Texas Rangers. So the Rangers, they've had closer problems over the last few seasons, and they signed Kennedy in the offseason to a deal. So Kennedy, he's got 2 saves on the season so far. His stats, 4 innings pitched, 2 saves for him, 6 strikeouts, and 2 earned runs for Kennedy. So Kennedy, he's going to be the closer for Texas. Obviously, Texas, they're not one of the better teams in the major leagues, but if you need closer help, you go out there and get these guys because they're out there in tons of leagues, and they should be owned in most leagues, especially if you want to carry 2 or 3 closers on your roster. These guys should be rostered, and Kennedy, he's available in 51% of fantasy leagues. And the last couple outings for him, April 7th versus Toronto, he went 1 inning, he got the save, only gave up a hit, and he got 3 strikeouts, so a pretty good inning there. And then his last outing, it didn't go that good though. 1 inning pitched, a non-save situation. He gave up an earned run and 3 hits in that inning. But Ian Kennedy, if you need some cheap saves and a guy who's going to get the opportunity, I would definitely add him in 12-team leagues or deeper, especially if you want to carry 2 or 3 closes. The next pitch is John Gray of the Colorado Rockies. So Gray, he was on the list last week, and he's on it once again this week. He's available still in 83% of fantasy leagues is John Gray. And Gray, we know he's got upside and potential, and for years the Rockies and fantasy owners have been waiting for it for this former top prospect. So far in the season, 11 2/3, a 1-0 record, only 2 earned runs, 12 strikeouts, a 1.54 ERA, and a quality start under the belt of Gray. So his first 2 starts of the season have been pretty good for Gray. April 3rd versus the Dodgers, 5 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts. And April 8th versus the Arizona Diamondbacks, 6 2/3. He got the win in that ball game, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. But now he's going to verse the Dodgers once again in a couple days here is Gray's next start. But Gray, I would definitely give him a shot, and I have him in a couple fantasy leagues. He's looked sharp so far. I know the walks are usually an issue for him. 5 walks so far in the first 2 starts of the season for him. But right now, he's a guy that's on the waiver wire. And he's a guy that should be owned in most fantasy leagues, in my opinion, especially with a lot of pitching getting bombed so far in the early season and it being thin. So I think John Gray, he's definitely worth an ad this week. And if he gets bombed, you just drop him and put him back on the wire. But I think he still has decent upside, is John Gray. The next pitcher is Emmanuel Clase of the Cleveland Indians. So Clase, we saw him get a save situation and get it done 2 times in a row now here for the Indians. And like I said, this Indian team, they're not going to be that great this season. But right here, I think Clase, he's got pretty good stuff, and the Indians believe in him. After Kartnick, he really hasn't gotten the job done. And so far in the season, Clase, 4 innings pitched, 1-0 record, 2 saves, only 1 hit, 6 strikeouts, and only 1 walk. So Clase, he's coming in, and he's getting the job done and putting teams down pretty easily. And the last few outings for Clase, April 7th versus Kansas City, he got a win in that game, 2 strikeouts. April 9th versus Detroit, went 1 inning, got the save, 3 outs, 2 strikeouts. And then yesterday versus Detroit, once again, he went 1 inning, got the save in the 9th, 1 hit, a walk, and a strikeout. So he got in a little trouble, but he found his way out of it. And now versus Chicago, I think these are going to be close games. And there could be games where Clase comes in, and he's available also in 75% of fantasy leagues is Clase. So another cheap closer option on the waiver wire. And this is what I said coming into drafts this season, that this close is a crapshoot, and you can find guys all season in the later rounds of your draft, or just wait and pick up guys. And we've seen a lot of closer changes so far in the early season here. The next pitcher is Matt Shoemaker of the Minnesota Twins. So Shoemaker, we've seen flashes of him throughout his career of good starts and good outings when he was with the Angels and a little bit with the Blue Jays the last couple seasons. And on the season so far for Shoemaker, he's won 11 innings, a 1-0 record, 10 hits given up, 5 earned runs, 12 strikeouts. So that's good for a 4.09 ERA, a 1 whip, and 1 quality start. So far in the first 2 starts for Shoemaker, April 5th versus Detroit, 6 innings. He got the win in that one, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts. And then yesterday versus Seattle, it wasn't that great of a ball game for Shoemaker. 5 innings, 4 earned runs, 7 strikeouts, and he gave up 7 hits in that one. So Shoemaker, he's going to be hit or miss some nights, but I think the Twins, they like him in the rotation, and he's going to get another opportunity this week. I think the 16th is the next start here for Shoemaker, and he's more of an ad in deeper leagues. He's available in 82% of fantasy leagues as Shoemaker, but I think he could get the job done. And if you need some back end of the rotation help on your bench, or if you got a lot of injuries, which we've seen pile up, I don't think Shoemaker is the worst of additions this week on the waiver wire. And the final pitcher I will look to add on waivers this week's Johnny Cueto of the San Francisco Giants. So Cueto, obviously, we know throughout his career, he's had huge seasons and Cy Young type of seasons. But now at 35 years old, it's going to be tough for Cueto to be totally consistent and have great outings each and every time out there. But Cueto, he almost won a complete game the other night versus the Colorado Rockies. And so far in the early going of the season, Cueto, 14 in the 3rd inning, 1-0 record, 10 hits given up, 4 earned runs only, 14 strikeouts, which comes out to a 2.51 ERA, an 0.98 whip, and 1 quality start. So Cueto, he's in the NL West, which is a pretty tough division. You got good teams, obviously, like the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks, and the Rockies still can hit the baseball. But Cueto, he's been dominant the first 2 starts pretty much. He's gone out there and pitched well. And April 2nd at Seattle, 5 2/3, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 7 strikeouts. And then April 9th, where he almost went the distance versus the Rockies, 8 2/3, got the win in that ball game, 1 earned run, 4 hits, 7 strikeouts, and the quality start. So Cueto, his strikeout rate is up there, and he's getting good outs, and he's pitching the ball better. And Cueto, the problems for him have been injuries over the last few seasons, but if he could get things together, he could be a decent add in fantasy leagues. And like I said, he's out there in 80% plus of leagues, and his next start's April 14th versus former team, the Cincinnati Reds. So I would roll the dice and try to add Cueto, especially after a good outing like he had the other night. Pitches I would look to add here in week 2 of the fantasy baseball season.